Hello and welcome. I hope that you had a wonderful weekend. I'm Mary, a librarian at the Claremont Branch Library. Glad to have you joining for the weekly poetry reading that we do here. Today will be poems about flowers, so a lot of different variety here, and I hope that you enjoy the poems which I have picked out to read to you today. We are going to start with a poem by William Wordsworth called I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. Next poem is called Ah, Sunflower by William Blake. Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that golden clime, where the traveler's journey is done, where the youth pined away with desire, and the pale virgin shrouded in snow, arise from their graves and aspire, where my sunflower wishes to go. And next is another short poem, and this one is by Vachel Lindsay called Golden Orchids. In the snow-born waterfalls we found the golden orchids, nodding in the moss beneath the thunder. Though many a snowstorm there had come and gone, though many a wind had deeply snowed them under, they nodded there and slept in spite of thunder, in delicate, serene, and golden wonder. Next is The Hill Flower by Alfred Noyes. It is my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. So was it sung one golden hour among the woodbine wreaths, and yet, though wet with living dew, the song seemed far more sweet than true. Blind creatures of the sun and air, I dreamed it but a dream, that, like Narcissus, would confer with self in every stream, and to the leaves and boughs impart the tremors of a human heart. Today a golden pinion stirred the world's Bethsaida pool, and I believed the song I heard, nor put my heart to school. And through the rainbows of the dream I saw the gates of Eden gleam. The rain had ceased, the great hills rolled in silence to the deep. The gorse in waves of green and gold perfumed their lonely sleep. And at my feet one elfin flower drooped, blind with glories of the shower. I stooped, a giant from the sky, above its piteous shield, and suddenly the dream went by, and there was heaven revealed. I stooped to pluck it, but my hand paused midway o'er its fairyland. Not of my own was that strange voice, pluck, tear a star from heaven. Mine only was the awful choice, to scoff and be forgiven, or hear the very grass I trod, whispering the gentle thoughts of God. I know not if the hill flower's place beneath that mighty sky, its lonely and aspiring grace, its beauty born to die, touched me. I know it seemed to be cherished by all eternity. Man doomed to crush at every stride 100 lives like this, which by their weaknesses were allied, if by naught else to his, can only for a flash discern what passion through the whole doth yearn. Not into words can I distill the pity or the pain which hallowing all that lonely hill, cried out, Refrain, refrain, then breathed from earth and sky and sea, Herein you did it unto me. Somewhile that hill was heaven's own breast, the flower its joy and grief, hugged close and fostered and caressed in every brief bright leaf. And, ere I went through sun and dew, I leant and gently touched it too. I'm going to do a poem by Robert Herrick called Two Daffodils. Fair daffodils, we weep to see you haste away so soon. As yet the early rising sun has not attained his noon. Stay, stay, until the hasting day has run, but to the evensong. And, having prayed together, we will go with you along. We have short time to stay as you, we have as short a spring, as quick a growth to meet decay as you or anything. We die as your hours do, and dry away, like to the summer's rain, or as the pearls of morning's dew, ne'er to be found again. A poem by Robert Frost called The Tufts of Flowers. I went to turn the grass once after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun. The dew was gone that made his blade so keen, before I came to view the levelled scene. I looked for him behind an aisle of trees, I listened for his whetstone on the breeze. But he had gone his way, the grass all mown, and I must be, as he had been, alone. As all must be, I said within my heart, whether they work together or apart. But as I said it, swift there passed me by, on noiseless wing, a bewildered butterfly, seeking with memories grown dim or night, some resting flower of yesterday's delight. And once I marked his flight go round and round, as where some flower lay withering on the ground. And then he flew as far as eye could see, and then on tremulous wing came back to me. I thought of questions that have no reply, and would have turned to toss the grass to dry. But he turned first, and led my eye to look at a tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. A leaping tongue of bloom the scythe had spared, beside a reedy brook the scythe had bared. I left my place to know them by their name, finding them butterfly weed when I came. The mower in the dew had loved them thus, by leaving them to flourish, not for us, nor yet to draw one thought of ours to him, but from sheer morning gladness at the brim. The butterfly and I had lit upon, nevertheless, a message from the dawn, that made me hear the wakening birds around, and hear his long scythe whispering to the ground, and feel a spirit kindred to my own, so that henceforth I worked no more alone, but glad with him I worked with his aid, and weary sought at noon with him the shade, and dreaming, as it were, held brotherly speech with one whose thought I had not hoped to reach. Men work together, I told him from the heart, whether they work together or apart. Another short poem, which is called Orchid by, it's called Orchid Lady by Hilda Conkling. Tan and green orchid, are you a little lady holding up your skirts above wet grass? Do you wear a feather where that white is showing? Is there any color shut inside your heart? I could be an orchid. I could be a lady. I could wear a feather. I could step like you. There is just the difference of your way of bowing, and your tilted bonnet, and your satin shoe. Next, I want to do a few poems that aren't directly about flowers, but use flowers in some of their imagery and description. So the first of those poems is a poem called April by Ella Higginson. Ah, who is this with twinkling feet, with glad young eyes and laughter sweet? Who tosses back her strong wild hair and saucy kisses flings to care, the while she laughs at her. Beware, you who this winsome maiden meet. She dances on a daisied throne, about her waist a slender zone of dandelion's gold. Her eyes are softer than the summer skies, and blue as violets, and lies a tearful laughter in her tone. She reaches dimpled arms and bare, her breath is sweet as wild rose air. She sighs, she smiles, she glances down, her brows meet in a sudden frown. She laughs, then tears the violets drowned. If you should meet her, ah, beware. This next poem is by Oscar Wilde, and it is called Her Voice. The wild bee reels from bough to bough, with his furry coat and his gauzy wing, now in a lily cup, and now setting a jacinth bell a-swing in his wandering. Sit closer, love, it was here I trow I made that vow, swore that 2 lives should be like one, as long as the seagull loved the sun, as long as the sunflower sought the sun. It shall be, I said, for eternity, 'twixt you and me. Dear friend, those times are over and done, love's web is spun. Look upward where the poplar trees sway in the summer air. Here in the valley never a breeze scatters the thistledown, but there great winds blow fair from the mighty murmuring mystical seas and the wave-lashed leas. Look upward where the white gull screams. What does it see that we do not see? Is that a star, or the lamp that gleams on some outward voyaging Argosy? Ah, can it be we have lived our lives in a land of dreams? How sad it seems. Sweet, there is nothing left to say but this, that love is never lost. Keen winter stabs the breasts of May, whose crimson roses burst his frost. Ships tempest-tossed will find a harbor in some bay, and so we may. And there is nothing left to do but to kiss once again and part. Nay, there is nothing we should rue. I have my beauty, and you your art. Nay, do not start. One world was not enough for 2, like me and you. And moving on to a poem by George Herbert called The Flower. How fresh, O Lord, how sweet and clean are thy returns, even as the flowers in spring, to which, besides their own demesne, the late past frosts tributes of pleasure bring. Grief melts away, like snow in May, as if there were no such cold thing. Who would have thought my shriveled heart could have recovered greenness? It was gone quite underground, as flowers depart to see their mother root when they have blown, where they together, all the hard weather, dead to the world, keep house unknown. These are thy wonders, Lord of power, killing and quickening, bringing down to hell and up to heaven in an hour, making a chiming of a passing bell. We say amiss, this or that is. Thy word is all, if we could spell. Oh, that I once past changing were, fast in thy paradise, where no flower can wither. Many a spring I shoot up there, offering at heaven, growing and groaning thither. Nor doth my flower want a spring shower, my sins and I joining together. But while I grow in a straight line, still upwards bent, as if heaven were mine own, thy anger comes, and I decline. What frost to that? What pole is not the zone, where all things burn, when thou dost turn, and the least frown of thine is shown? And now in age I bud again, after so many deaths I live and write. I once more smell the dew and rain, and relish versing. O my only light, it cannot be that I am he on whom thy tempests fell all night. These are thy wonders, Lord of love, to make us see we are but flowers that glide, which when we once can find and prove, thou hast a garden for us where to bide. Who would be more, swelling through store, forfeit their paradise by their pride? And one more poem that is not directly about flowers, but uses flower imagery. It's a short one called Thaw by Lola Ridge. Blow through me, wind, as you blow through apple blossoms. Scatter me in shining petals over the passers-by. Joyously I reunite, sway and gather to myself. Sedately I walk by the dancing feet of children, not knowing I too dance over the cobbled spring. Oh, but they laugh back at me, eyes like daisies smiling wide open, and we both look askance at the snowed-in people, thinking me one of them. And now back to poems that are more directly about flowers. And this poem is by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it is simply called The Flower. Once in a golden hour I cast to earth a seed. Up there came a flower. The people said, a weed. To and fro they went through my garden bower, and muttering discontent cursed me and my flower. Then it grew so tall it wore a crown of light, but thieves from o'er the wall stole the seed by night. Sowed it far and wide by every town and tower, till all the people cried, splendid is the flower. Read my little fable, he that runs may read. Most can raise the flowers now, for all have got the seed. And some are pretty enough, and some are poor indeed. And now again the people call it but a weed. And this is called Sent with a Flower Pot, Begging a Slip of Geranium by Christian Milne. I've sent my empty pot again to beg another slip. The last you gave, I'm grieved to tell, December's frost did nip. I love fair Flora and her train, but nurse her children ill. I tend too little or too much, they die from want of skill. I blush to trouble you again, who've served me oft before, but should this die, I'll break the pot and trouble you no more. And this is a poem by Claude McKay called The Easter Flower. Far from this foreign Easter, damp and chilly, my soul steals to a pear-shaped plot of ground, where gleamed the lilac-tinted Easter lily, soft-scented in the air for yards around, alone without a hint of guardian leaf, just like a fragile bell of silver rhyme. It burst from the tomb for freedom sweet and brief, in the young pregnant year at Easter time. And many thought it was a sacred sign, and some called it the resurrection flower, and I, a pagan, worshipped at its shrine, yielding my heart unto its perfumed power. And just a few more poems, and then we will end our reading for today. This poem is called The Crocuses by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. They heard the south wind sighing, a murmur of the rain, and they knew that earth was longing to see them all again. While the snowdrops still were sleeping beneath the silent sod, they felt their new life pulsing within the dark, cold clod. Not a daffodil nor daisy had dared to raise its head, not a fair-haired dandelion peeped timid from its bed. Though a tremor of the winter did shivering through them run, yet they lifted up their foreheads to greet the vernal sun. And the sunbeams gave them welcome, as did the morning air, and scattered o'er their simple robes rich tints of beauty rare. Soon a host of lovely flowers from vales and woodland burst, but in all that fair procession the crocuses were first. First to weave for earth a chaplet, to crown her dear old head, and to beauty the pathway where winter still did tread. And their loved and white-haired mother smiled sweetly 'neath the touch, when she knew her faithful children were loving her so much. A poem by Marjorie Pickthall called Daisy Time. See, the grass is full of stars, fallen in their brightness. Hearts they have of shining gold, rays of shining whiteness. Buttercups have honey hearts, bees, they love the clover, but I love the daisy's dance, all the meadow over. Blow, oh blow, you happy winds, singing summer's praises, up the field and down the field, a-dancing with the daisies. And I will end with this poem by Lucian B. Watkins called The Flower at My Window. Oh, my heart now feels so cheerful as I go with footsteps light in the daily toil of my dear home. And I'll tell to you the secret that now makes my life so bright. There's a flower at my window in full bloom. It is radiant in the sunshine and so cheerful after rain, and it wafts upon the air its sweet perfume. It is very, very lovely. May its beauties never wane, this dear flower at my window in full bloom. Nature has so clothed it in such glorious array, and it does so cheer our home and hearts illume. Its dear memory I will cherish though the flower fade, this dear flower at my window in full bloom. Oft I gaze upon this flower with its blossoms pure and white, and I think as I behold its gay costume, while through life we are all passing, may our lives be always bright, like this flower at my window in full bloom. And that is what I have for you today. I hope that the poems are ones that brought you some joy, and maybe you can find some flowers out there to remember these poems and remember that there is beauty out there. So next week, next Monday at 11 o'clock, I will be doing some poems that have more of a rhythm and a rhyme to them, not necessarily by topic but by form. So I hope that you will join me again next week for those. They should be a lot of fun. And until then, I hope you have a wonderful week.